Yeah, I mean, I wonder how many men their first introduction to therapy is in couples counseling, and that would be ruthless.
It's
especially
brutal.
especially if we're trying to salvage this thing. Maybe there's kids, maybe there's not. I love this woman, I want to make it work. Blah 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 blah. And yeah, the messiness, getting used to not bringing sentences into land neatly and not having a great takeaway, bailing out of sentences halfway through and going, actually, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I don't think that's right. I was about to commit. I mean, you're laughing because presumably this happens in a lot of your therapeutic.
I'm laughing because this sounds like it's coming from experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, but that's something, again, to sort of break the fourth wall. I have a pattern where I can spin you a yarn about, Winston Churchill on his first day in office and a blah, blah, blah. And he did this thing and bring it into land with this nice sort of flourish at the end and watch someone's eyes light up and, isn't that cool? And I get this little kick of dopamine. And I'm like, no, that's podcast Chris. And podcast Chris doesn't get to come in and try and show off to his therapist about how good of a communicator he is or about this cool fucking story that he found out or whatever. And it's one of the reasons why I was really glad that I did it in person. And oddly, I do way more podcasts, not on a soundstage in front of a huge video wall, and not even in person. I do most of them over the internet, which means that when I get on a call, I try and bring things into land in podcast mode. Need to not be in podcast mode. And learning to be messy with sentences, to pay attention to fleeting thoughts, to bail out when you realize that you've started a thing and you were going to say this thing, but actually it's not that true. All of these, they're skills, and trying to craft a very beautiful sentence in many ways, which is something that I love to do. Much of the time, what you're doing is sacrificing accuracy for beauty, because it's not always the absolute truth of what you're trying to say. Probably doesn't end with a flourish and get nicely boxed up and a bow pushed across the table. It probably does veer off a little bit and use some slightly imprecise language, and then it just sort of it crash lands on the desk of whoever it is that you're talking to. So that's been a real allowing myself to be messier with my speech has been a real skill.